Hello, my name's Jeff Bost. I'm a consultant to ACTIVZ along with my colleague, Dr. Joseph Maroon. We're here today to discuss some of the latest research on the ACTIVZ ingredients. It's so good to be with you here today. Dr. Maroon and I have been the scientific advisors for ACTIVZ for a number of years. And Dr. Maroon, I have to rub it in a little bit. You missed the awards cruise that just was this summer with the top I think about 200 distributors for ACTIVZ. And it was a great cruise, and I was able to present some of our latest information on the microbiome primarily and the Lynx product. However, also reviewed both other products, the genomics as well, and the Optimen. And both of these products are really exciting. And one of the things that I think we wanted to start out with, Dr. Maroon, today is, why are we interested in this topic of nutraceuticals, and why is it so important, and what's so unique about ACTIVZ that really, as I say in this first line here, we both served on the GNC Scientific Advisory Board, and we really had access to some of the top minds in the country as far as what was going on in dietary supplements. And I think in a lot of ways, there's a very huge similarity between the cutting edge products that we have with ACTIVZ as well.
Well, absolutely, Jeff. And I am going to make the Cancun meeting, by the way. At least I
Right.
hope to. And also I'm excited to discuss the innovations and the updates on various products that I think are so important that we consider taking on a daily basis and that have been developed by ACTIV. And the various products have huge implications in terms of our overall health and also some of the major diseases such as cancer as well as Alzheimer's disease that affect so many people in this country.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. And one of the biggest things that, we brought us to the table, so to speak, was the butyric acid found in the Link product. I mean, we had gone off sort of on a Quixotean quest to find a way to combat a very horrible disease that's not too uncommon and actually becoming more common, and that is a glioblastoma multiforme, which is a horribly malignant tumor and incurable. So people unfortunately die from this. And early on, Dr. Maroon, we both were profoundly disturbed by this tumor and looked at many ways to treat it. And it didn't seem like surgery and radiation and the typical ways were doing much. And the idea, we met a fellow out of Boston, and Dr. Maroon, you can address him here in a minute.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
he had a whole different idea on how to treat it. Go ahead, Dr. Maroon.
Yeah, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, Seyfried, Seyfried at Boston College is a brilliant scientist who believes and has written many papers as well as a superb book entitled The Metabolic Basis of Cancer. And his thesis is that cancer, for the large part, is much based on a metabolic principle in terms of how we utilize glucose and sugar and rather than just genetics. It's clearly a combination of both. But his thesis is that cancers are primarily dependent on sugar or glucose for their metabolism. So that if we can prevent the uptake of sugar and reduce it, and a very effective way to do that is a ketogenic diet, as well as a couple of other chemicals to prevent the uptake of glutamate, which is an amino acid that also is converted to sugar. This may indeed, as it's shown experimentally in animals, reduce the incidence of cancer, and actually maybe, in fact, it is being used in conjunction with chemotherapeutic agents in the treatment of many patients with cancer now. That is a marked reduction in sugar, the ketogenic diet, with additional drugs that affect glutamate metabolism.
So just to review, the idea of ketogenic diet stimulates the production of a different pathway or a different energy pathway for cells. And one of those energy molecules that are used when in the absence of sugar is butyric acid. So when you put someone on a ketogenic diet, they actually change from a sugar-based energy consumption to a butyric acid-based energy consumption. And basically, when we heard that ACTIVZ had a product that could provide energy in the form of links and butyric acid, we immediately thought and met with David Brown and the team at ACTIVZ to really discuss the idea of utilizing it to change the metabolic energy of people with cancer. And we subsequently know that the idea of ketogenic diet has exploded for the use of weight loss and other healthy benefits. Mental health, there's now a huge study that showed ketogenic diet helps mental health, reduces depression and other mental health conditions. So the idea of changing the energy of the body away from sugar and how butyric acid does that and provides energy in a different way. And of course, we've discussed it quite frequently, and we will discuss it in this lecture, how it benefits the colon and the gut by actually providing energy. But Dr. Maroon, this slide is really disturbing on what's going on with cancer in people, and it really is frightening to me relative to cancer of the colon. And I think there is a link between what our diet and what's happening in cancer, and especially in the colon.
Well, Jeff, I agree with you. And the disconcerting fact is that colon cancer, for instance, is now the most common cause of death among men under 50 in terms of cancer deaths, and the second leading cause of cancer death in women. So why is that? And there's an early onset increase of over 30% of colorectal cancers, and many other cancers have increased in incidence in those under age 50. So, what's going on, as you rhetorically asked?
And this sort of summarize, and I'll let you have the honor or the dishonor of really telling the story of sugar in our diet.
Yeah, it's really astounding when you think back a couple of hundred years ago. 1800, the average person consumed 18 pounds of sugar per year. Fast forward to 2009, and more than 50% of all Americans consumed 10 times as much, or 180 pounds of sugar per year. So what have we seen happen? Again, the link between diet, subsequent obesity, and then inflammation, which is a common genesis of so many diseases of aging as well as cancer, leading to colon cancer and other disabling diseases.
Yeah, and it really is a chain that is getting worse and worse. The idea of our diet, increased sugar, and especially the colon seeming to be very susceptible to the influx of our dietary change relative to sugar. So it's all sort of unfortunately adding up to a very bad problem. And this slide, Dr. Maroon, is somewhat complicated, but I think it's something that our folks can really understand if we go through it with them.
Yeah, no question about it. I mentioned inflammation. So what happens when you have excess sugar in your diet, and how it affects your liver, your gut, your brain? Well, it leads to what's called oxidative stress. Oxidative stress occurs when there's a buildup of free radicals, which are usually squelched or quenched by antioxidants. And when the free radicals become excessive, they destroy DNA, proteins, and also mitochondria. And when that happens, there's subsequent angiogenesis, or the proliferation of new blood vessels, and cell proliferation, as well as cell death. And basically, all of this contributes, the inflammation contributes to DNA changes, and subsequent mitoses in cells, and subsequent the development of malignancies, as well as cardiovascular problems with the lining of the vessels that supply our heart and our brain. So obesity and sugar equals a higher colon cancer risk, as well as a higher Alzheimer's risk and a higher cancer in other types of cancer risk.
And I think that the link of all this is the fact that it's altering our microbiome. That amount of sugar is either overstimulating or doing something that alters the microbiome that appears to enhance the environment for the growth of cancer. And so it stimulates the growth of new blood vessels and increases the rate of cancer spread. And we're seeing this statistically in our population. The higher and greater percentage of obesity, sugar consumption is now being reflected by increased colon cancer risk, altered microbiome, and a greater susceptible colon for cancer cells. So it's becoming a real epidemic here in most countries. So what we really, one of the reasons we put this slideshow together is really to discuss the importance of the microbiome. And one of the things that Dr. Maroon, obviously the group that I was speaking to was quite informed about all the interesting and important properties of the ACTIVZ products. But I asked rhetorically, did anyone know about the microbiome 10 years ago? I could ask probably 100 people, and maybe only 5 of them would be able to say, oh, well, the microbiome's this, and it's part of the gut, and it's where the bacteria live in the colon. Today, it's a household word, and everybody has learned how important microbiome is to some degree. And so we're hearing more and more about the thousands of microbiome species or bacteria in the gut, and how these are different in you and different in me, yet some are very similar. So those differences may mean something as far as our health and actually our longevity. There are over 150,000 times or 150 times more genes in the microbiome than in the human genomic. So really the diversity of that microbiome is beyond what our human body is made out of. So it really plays a key role in our health and our disease prevention. And how this is really a fascinating slide for all of us to maybe just even have as part of our when we discuss with other distributors or potential clients, how the microbiome just diversifies and its functions and actions and benefits go to all the organ systems. As you can see here, almost every organ system in the body, from the heart, the brain, the lungs, the reproductive system, or even our skin, has a link between the microbiome. And there's research studies for each of these, and it's sort of a good picture in the sense, but really, as far as what we are talking about today is the colon and the colon health.
And Jeff, I might add to that slide that the connections that you showed are all through primarily 2 mechanisms. Number one is the vagus, VAGUS nerve, which means wandering, the wandering nerve, which is the largest cranial nerve that connects the brain with all of the organ systems that are depicted on that chart. And then, so not just neural regulation be the vagus nerve, but there's also the immune reaction and the immune humoral mechanisms that connect the gut with all other organ systems, and also the brain. So that there's bi-directional communication between the brain and the gut. The gut brain and the brain gut connection has become very important now, not just for cancer, but in mental health and so many other areas of medicine.
Such an important point. Thank you, Dr. Maroon. So we wanted to bring you 3 of the most recent studies, and there's literally hundreds of them out there. But the idea of benefits related to having a healthy microbiome, specifically aiding and benefiting the bacteria that produce butyric acid. And we obviously have a cheat in the sense that we can get butyric acid through the Lynx product, But overall, increasing the amount of butyric acid in the gut is very important. And one of the ways to do that, and all of you should know that, because it's really important to discuss whenever you discuss using links with anybody, the idea of also telling them the importance of your diet, specifically fiber in the diet, how bacteria in the gut live and feed on fiber in order to produce and divide and be healthy. And as they produce, the fiber is used and broken down by the microbiome into short chain fatty acids, one of which, as we know, is butyric acid. Only certain microbiome actually do this, but the butyric acid is used throughout the gut as an energy system. And so what's happened in the world? Well, there's been a huge decrease in the amount of fiber we consume. And so we're seeing that reflected in the microbiome of the gut. If the bacteria in the gut are not getting the food that they need, it's obviously not functioning properly. And we see some of the reasons why. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease are all associated with decreased fiber consumption. So there's two studies that came out, and this just came out in 23, that showed that people who eat more fiber have a lower risk of Alzheimer's disease and all forms of dementia. Just eating fiber, Dr. Maroon. And I think for our audience who really, are colon and microbiome healthy, we always have to talk about fiber and the importance of fiber, and how in this study, just fiber itself was able to lower the forms of dementia like Alzheimer's disease. Any
Very
thoughts?
good points, Jeff. I just saw a paper yesterday on the link between the gut and the development of Alzheimer's disease, which goes exactly to the point you're making. And it also emphasizes, so what's changed in our diet? Processed foods. Most of the foods that you get, or we get, people make choices for, it's less expensive, more filling, but also less fiber because they're processed. And the fiber is removed, and the sugar, oftentimes sugar, salt, and fat are added, which are the things that our taste buds gravitate to. So I agree 100% with what you said.
It's an amazing study, very simple to do, but it really showed. So now we're going to talk about diabetes, one of the most common chronic diseases in the whole world, as far as its complications, amputations, kidney failure, all the complications that we see day in and day out in the medical field is related in some ways to the microbiome. This study showed that they took the bacteria, they looked at bacteria of people who had diabetes and people that didn't have diabetes and compared them. Well, as I said at the onset, the microbiome is significantly different in a lot of people, but this was specific to diabetics and non-diabetics. They found that diabetics generally had the lack of certain microbiome that may be contributing to their disease, or it may be caused by their disease. Specifically, people that had diabetes had microbiomes that had fewer bacteria that produced butyric acid. So this is a huge, everybody knows someone who has diabetes, and someone who has diabetes should be concerned about the amount of butyric acid they're producing, because most likely they have a low level of butyric acid. Could possibly links be a benefit to them? It sounds like it. Could increased fiber be a benefit? Absolutely. So we need to think about this when we think about people that may benefit from these products, that diabetes and butyric acid are linked, lower levels of butyric acid producing bacteria. And so this study, I think, was profound in the sense that the lower amount of healthy bacteria in the colon actually causes a lack of insulin sensitivity, which means that the insulin is not utilized well by the cells, which means therefore the blood sugar is higher in the body, and higher blood sugar means more complications. Any thoughts on this, Dr. Maroon?
Well, I think you're exactly right, Jeff. It's 2 + 2 is equal diabetes.
Yeah, yeah. It really is an exciting study as well. And I think that this really, I think, goes back to the distributors. When you have conversations with potential other distributors or clients, it's important to discuss, them holistically. If you have these conditions, to think about it. And this one's a fun one, Dr. Maroon. If you could go over this with our audience, it
Yeah,
really is a
I
fun
was
one.
very surprised. So, we hear of yogurt being good for you, but what's in yogurt? Well, yogurt is full of healthy bacteria. And remarkably to me, the FDA last month just released a claim that it's all right to claim that 2 cups or 3 servings of yogurt per week can lower your risk of having type 2 diabetes. That's pretty phenomenal. I mean, you're saying that more bacteria will lead to less diabetes. And it doesn't matter whether sugar is added or not, low fat or not, although I would take a little issue with that. I think that your kefir, KEFIR, is something that I take every day. It doesn't have sugar in it and low fat, uh, but clearly yogurt with the bacteria replenishes the microbiome, and particularly 2 of the bacteria, Lactobacillus acidophilus and Bifidobacterium bifidum, are both associated with the production of butyric acid, which is found in yogurt in that regard. So important.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And this is the federal government of the United States claiming this, relative to studies that have been done. So it really is important. So in summary, and we've had this slide before, but butyric acid directly increases the amount of energy in colon cells. That helps build a healthy microbiome, decreases inflammation, enhances vitamin absorption. It specifically can improve the amount of neurotransmitters for the brain, serotonin and dopamine being produced in the colon. And as you said, the pathway goes back and forth up through the vagus nerve, back up to the brain. It's the largest production of these neurotransmitters. And so it's important to remember the brain gut connection. And it also benefits our immune system. So these are important parts to what we want to discuss today. We're going to shift base here a little bit and talk about Optimed quickly. But one of the things that I brought up on the cruise, Dr. Moon, is the fact that the vast majority of turmeric is not absorbed in the body. There's only a small amount of turmeric that's generally absorbed because it is broken down in the upper part of the intestinal tracts. ACTIVZ products, Optimed, has a system where it encapsulates the turmeric, allows it to go into part of the intestine where it actually can be absorbed and be beneficial. 99% of the turmeric you consume and other supplements are not consumed in the part of the gut that can benefit from it. So this is a very important sales point, if you will, but it's also very important for people to realize, turmeric's good in our diet. There's no doubt about it, but you're only getting very little. And so, any thoughts on this, Dr. Maroon?
Well, Jeff, that's exactly right. So basically, what the cycloc and the dex key do, it protects the curcumin, the turmeric, so that it's not broken down by the acid of the stomach, but actually passes into the lower intestinal tract, where it's eventually released and is able to be absorbed and utilized in the gut and in the large intestine and get absorbed. So a very important differential point that we all need to know.
Right. And so this is just summarizes the importance of silent inflammation. You can't feel it, you don't have the pain for it, but it's affecting the inside of our blood vessels. One of the biggest cause of atherosclerosis, or narrowing of the blood vessels, relating to subsequent heart attack, stroke, and then the other complications associated with that, including diabetes, joint pain, and degenerative diseases of the brain. All are silent. You don't feel them. So Optimed has the ability to lower inflammation and may benefit that as well. Genomics is a product, Dr. Maroon, I know is near and dear to our heart relative to its activation of the nerve factors. And can you just go over this briefly? I know our distributors have a good handle on this, but just review what the effect is of activating the nerve transcription factor?
Yeah, there are three natural products that are combined in genomics: rosemary, gingerol, and luteolin. And these are all natural, but most significantly, they all increase a transcription factor called NRF2, which is okay, what does that mean? And basically, what NRF2, it tells the DNA to increase the antioxidant enzyme gene production to produce more antioxidants. What's the significance of that? Earlier, I mentioned oxidative stress, where cells normally produce free radicals, which can be dangerous to DNA and cell membranes. Unless they are squelched by antioxidants, they become very destructive and harmful. Genomics activates a particular chemical moiety in the body called glutathione, and glutathione is the main antioxidant in the brain. And I've become so interested in this because I've been working with a Dr. Pravat Mandal, who is the former director of the Indian National Brain Institute. And we've done studies showing that in patients with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, there's a marked deficiency of glutathione in the brain, which is the major antioxidant to counter the oxidative stress produced by normal metabolism. So that any way we can raise glutathione levels in the body and subsequently the brain can have more than a theoretical basis for ameliorating, stopping, preventing Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and other diseases of oxidative stress, even like ALS. These are all subject to oxidation and oxidative stress. So, whatever we can do to increase glutathione, and we're looking to do studies now actually to show various products that can increase glutathione to cross the blood-brain barrier to increase it in the brain.
Fascinating, Dr. Maroon. And, pulling together three nations, the United States, Australia, and India is really, quite an accomplishment. Here are some of the studies that Dr. Maroon and his colleagues have done and really have shown the benefits of glutathione and how they can actually measure glutathione in the brain to see the levels. And of interest is a recent study that showed glutathione levels dropped after you have anesthesia, which is something that we'll discuss another day. But it's the idea of having glutathione in our body and the benefit of increasing it through NRF2 is really so important, and it's an area that's going to continue to expand and place genomics in a great position. So, Dr. Maroon, we're run out of time as usual, but we're now just to summarize the idea of the life balance. We really have to think about the person as a whole, including their diet as well as their dietary supplements. The Link product, of course, being one of the linchpins for potentially increasing in the amount of benefits for our microbiome, producing butyric acid, both by benefiting the microbiome as well as producing it naturally and providing it naturally to the body. Optimed, reducing inflammation, and genomics, reducing oxidative stress in the way that it activates glutathione. So really what we're talking about is decreasing these stressors of inflammation, reducing the effect on our gut and oxidative stress. I'd really like to thank you, Dr. Maroon, and I'm sorry again you missed the cruise. It was a lot of fun, and those that were there, I'm sure, enjoyed it. And as you said, you'll be back in Cancun here shortly and have a face-to-face.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Excellent summary, and very, very important. Add exercise to this, and I think we have the optimum life balance that we all seek.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. We're going to sign off for now, and we'll speak again.